All Indiana Politics is your premier source for Indiana politics, focusing on issues that matter to you.
I still want us to be the best in the Midwest.
We can't afford another lockdown.
Give the citizens of this country the relief they need.
Education in the state of Indiana remains priority number one.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage.
We don't know exactly where the economy will be in January.
People are worried with good reason.
Exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders.
We have the resources here in the state of Indiana to care for those who are in need.
Expert analysis on critical legislation.
We need to reform those laws.
This recovery is going to take some time.
We've got to anticipate that there'll be a budget shortfall.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Good morning. Welcome to All Indiana Politics. I'm Phil Sanchez. A growing number of state lawmakers from both parties say they don't want a special session to redraw Indiana's congressional maps. This as the Trump administration pressures Republican governors, including Mike Braun, to do just that. Our government reporter Garrett Berquist traveled to Chicago, where Indiana Democrats met with Texas Democrats boycotting a special session in that state.
Never in my life did I think that the Vice President of the United States would come to my state to ask our legislature to shoplift two congressional districts.
Two caucuses from thousands of miles apart, brought together by the same issue.
So it doesn't matter. I'm American, just like those folks in Indiana are American, and we represent American values. We believe in the Constitution, and all this mid-decade redistricting, it's taking away from a very basic fundamental right that we all have. That's fair and proper representation.
Indiana House Democrats met their Texas counterparts at a park on the south side of Chicago. They say voters need to urge their elected officials not to back a last-minute redraw of Indiana's maps. Governor Mike Braun has been non-committal so far.
We're taking a slow, thoughtful process on that. It's going to be largely kind of determined by where our state legislators are coming from. And I think both caucus leaders are trying to size that up. And we're in no particular hurry. We want to do it in a way that makes sense, both for the reasons coming from the Trump administration and what makes sense for us as well.
Democrats say they want a definitive no.
We have a president that wants to have control of everything. The Republicans have a bunch of failed policies. Their big, beautiful bill has become a big, beautiful mess, or a big, ugly mess, I should say. And people are starting to feel the impacts of their policies, and they realize that they can't keep control.
State lawmakers just redrew Indiana's maps 4 years ago, following the 2020 census. 7 of Indiana's 9 seats in the U.S. House are safe Republican seats. The Cook Political Report rates Democrat Frank Mervan's Northwest Indiana district a near toss-up.
Is it worth potentially putting Rudy Yakum and Jim Baird at risk in an attempt to knock off Frank Mervan?
I think if you did anything like that, it would make sense that you didn't do it, not to mention should you do it in the first place. I think all of that will be thoughtfully discussed among our legislators.
Some House Republicans appear to support redrawing the maps. Representative Andrew Ireland says Indiana Democrats apparently have so little faith in their ability to actually earn the average Hoosier's vote that they'd rather cling to a map with 2 safe congressional districts instead of a map with potentially several competitive districts. Others call a special session a bad idea.
We are very fiscally responsible and doing a great job. So, why risk throwing a wrench in all the accomplishments that we have managed to get done in this time by pulling a political stunt that really doesn't need to be pulled? The best I guess we can pick up is 1 congressional seat.
So far, House and Senate Republican leaders have not indicated whether they would favor the governor calling a special session. On the south side of Chicago, I'm Garrett Berquist for Wish TV and WishTV.com.
Garrett also caught up with the governor on the state's new immigration enforcement agreement with ICE. The Braun administration making up 1,000 beds available at the Miami Correctional Facility for ICE detainees. The feds drew pushback from IndyCar by calling the facility the Speedway Slammer.
Governor, a lot of conversation about the use of the Miami Correctional Facility as an ICE detention facility. Who is going to be responsible for the day-to-day operations of the ICE detentions at that facility, and what is the state of Indiana going to do to ensure we don't see some of the issues with conditions there we've seen at places like the Florida one?
So we ought to be in good shape when it comes to the condition of the place. The beds were available So we are going to be not contributing in any way to be a sanctuary state. And if we do have facilities, we're going to make sure that they're usable. And I've said it's all along the lines of helping get the individuals, the worst first, in a place to where they can be deported, and strong backing for that. You got to be careful that you stick with that. When it comes to how you share the burden, a lot of it will be reimbursed from the federal government. In this case, we've got the capacity, so it's not like we're having to build anything or do anything out of the ordinary. And then when it comes to management, it'll be in a cooperative way. So the key is to help with a policy that makes sense to most Americans, most Hoosiers, and then to make sure that we're doing things that make common sense. And we're not building anything new, we're taking capacity we already have.
So how will the state be reimbursed for those beds?
Some of those details will be worked out, but we expect to be reimbursed for many of the direct costs. When it would come to, well, are you charging so much per bed? We're going to work it out in a reasonable way. We just wanted to make sure that we weren't delaying it. We had it available, and I think the net benefit, and I think we've got Hoosiers solidly behind us, is that the individuals that will be there, we do not want in the community. So,
when will the Miami Correctional Facility begin hosting detainees?
I'm not sure exactly when, but we're trying to do it in an expedited fashion.
What do you make of ICE's decision to brand this thing the Speedway Slammer? IndyCar said they weren't particularly happy with their use of intellectual property that way.
I think they did that in a way to have impact. When you look at the one in Florida, that, of course, was different from ours. And I think IMS made a point that that's their intellectual property, and I think they might have taken that down. So might have gotten ahead of their skis on that one, but I don't think the underlying point that we do not want dangerous individuals that committed crimes after they came into the country illegally. Indiana's going to be a state that helps remedy that issue.
What will be the exact role of the Indiana State Police under this 287G?
Well, just like I've said before, where we need the cooperation of our own law enforcement, we're going to be working with ICE, not being an impediment like you're getting in certain sanctuary states and especially cities, where they're actually attacking ICE officials, the citizens, and local law enforcement not doing anything about it because they're going along with it. That won't be the case in Indiana.
Third grade literacy rates saw the biggest jump in the state's history on the iRead assessment. It's also the fourth year in a row that rates climb. News 8's Malia Van Oosteren talks to education leaders about what's driving this success.
This year's numbers show that Indiana's literacy strategy is working, boosting reading skills for all student groups. State and local leaders say that this is just the beginning. Statewide, 87% of third graders passed the iRead exam. That's up 5% from last year and the largest single-year increase since 2013. The gains put Indiana back to pre-pandemic reading levels. Black students, English learners, and children in special education saw the largest jumps.
Is because of all of the people who put their hand in and said, we can do more, we can do better for kids, and we're going to keep our foot on the gas pedal. We're going to continue to improve in Indiana.
Patrick Mapes, superintendent of Hamilton Southeastern Schools, is thrilled with his district's success.
We're up to a 96 passing rate overall. So for the large school districts that have over 1,000 students in grade 3, we rank number 1 across the state.
Educators say the next challenge is keeping the momentum going so that students are prepared before they go to middle school.
Focused in on the data, we looked at our student skills, we made good, effective lesson plans, and we have the resources now, and the state has helped us identify those effective resources that we've implemented in our schools. We need to just keep getting better.
Jenner says data breaking down the numbers and where the state needs to focus will be released in October. She says getting students help where they need it will be top of mind.
Really understanding the very specific skills where students are struggling and where students might be strong. And we really have to struggle straight in on the individual student and the skills that they need. I'm Malia Van Oosteren for Wish TV and WishTV.com.
All right, coming up, the city of Indianapolis puts a controversial plan to clear a homeless camp on hold. Details after the break. back. Well, Monday marked the deadline to clear out a homeless encampment in Fountain Square. It still hasn't happened yet. ITMate's Lara Russell talked to the director of the Office of Public Health and Safety to find out why.
The director could not answer exactly when that deadline will be, but said they're working to get every person into housing. He also said the public safety risk in the area has been mitigated by arresting 2 people that presented dangerous situations.
Yeah, so the individuals that were committing crimes are still in custody. So the individual that fired a gun, and then the individual who was accused of animal cruelty.
In late July, the office told people living here on Leonard Street that they needed to be out on Monday, and they offered some resources for people to find housing. Hours before the deadline, I spoke to 11 people living there, and only 2 had found a place to live. One of them is Charlie Merrill, but he found a place without the help of the city. He gets the keys tomorrow. I caught up with him today and asked what he thought of how the city is handling the situation.
Stand to your word. Be a man of your word. Or a female of your word if you're a female out there.
Later, I asked the director what he has to say to people who feel like Merrill.
When you look at the amount of funding that we've committed or contributed already to solving for homelessness, I think it's quite clear that the administration is devoted.
Though I wasn't given an answer on when they plan to have the camp cleared, the director reiterated they needed more time to find help for people and that no new tents are allowed to go up in the area.
We cannot move this challenge from one neighborhood to another or to other parts of the Fountain Square neighborhood.
The office says they plan to have updates to us in the coming days. Reporting here in Indianapolis, I'm Lara Russell for Wish TV and WishTV.com.
All right, coming up, Indiana's best political team on the redistricting fight and the city's handling of a homeless encampment. All right, welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome in 2 members of Indiana's best political team, Democrat Lara Beck and Republican Mario Massillamany. Good to see you both. Let's begin with redistricting. Thank you. Mario, we'll start with you. Several Republican state lawmakers, as you very well know, have publicly said, we don't need a special session here. We haven't heard definitively from the governor yet. Your thoughts on this?
I think that we've got, Bray and Houston who are very disciplined, and they will make the right call on this. Some of the maps that I've seen, especially when you're considering moving the 7th and making that more Republican, splits up Hamilton County. As the Hamilton County Republican chairman, I'm against splitting up Hamilton County to try and refigure these maps. I believe that Hamilton County needs to be in one district. Also, I think that if they wanted to make a change, they could have done it 4 years ago. And so, especially with the 1st district, it's trending Republican. Let it trend Republican. And by the next, census, we'll be able to have it be a Republican seat.
Lara?
I don't want to make light of this, but anytime Jim Lucas, Senator Lucas, sits there and talks about optics and this not looking good, I think that says it all, right? It's Jim Lucas, for example. But what you're also seeing, I think, out of this as well is you're seeing some Republican House members in tight districts such as Becky Cash, Danny Lopez, immediately coming out and saying they're against it, because what can happen is it can tilt the scales back as a galvanizing issue in midterm elections, right? And so that could have a trickle-down effect on House Republicans, maybe less of Senate Republicans, but more House Republicans in some of these more swing districts. And I agree with Mario. I think it would be really challenging, especially to take blue Indianapolis, purple donuts, and try and carve those up and make those more Republican. I think it could have an adverse effect.
Go the other way.
It could go the other way.
And when this came up initially, I told a lot of my Republican friends, right now, Marion County, they have not been showing up to vote. And in statewide elections, if you annoy Marion County enough and galvanize them where they show up to vote, we are looking at possible issues with some of our statewide offices in 2026.
Well, and you're also going to have, you have Andre Carson, who is really beloved in that district and in the district that he serves in. And I think that's going to be a major issue. Going back, though, and taking a bigger step, I just think it's a sign that shows that Donald Trump has always talked about how the system is rigged. Well, he is rigging the system for him, but it also tells me that their numbers looking into 2026 may not not be as rosy as they think they are, especially because the economy still isn't improving. People still are having a hard time financially and economically, and the tariffs are starting to take effect.
And to your point, we heard from the California governor not too long ago, just a couple of days ago, who said the same exact thing, which is why he is also attempting to do the same thing in California. What's the impact with that, and could we see other states then try to counter that attack, Laura? Are you worried about that?
I'm not necessarily worried about it. I mean, I completely understand and respect what Governor Newsom is trying to do. He's trying to fight fire with fire. And I got to tell you, we have long been, we are the party of norms. And we just can't stand up for these norms anymore. We've got to fight back. But I also feel like he is introducing this into the conversation. I don't necessarily know that the Republicans who sat in a room with Trump and said, let's do this, they really thought that Democrats were going to fight back like this.
Go ahead.
Governor Newsom only cares about himself, and he is trying to create increase his name ID so he can run for president. That he is selfish, and that is his sole analysis on this. So don't act like Governor Newsom is trying to fight for democracy.
No, I mean
he is not by any means. He is just trying to.
He's just trying to fight to have a 2028 election to run for, Mario.
Just like the Illinois governor invited the Texas Democrats up there because he's trying to increase his name ID and profile around the country.
Political opportunism happens at all different ways of we have both sides of the aisle.
No one's doing it out of the goodness of their heart.
A little closer to home, guys. I love the back and forth. This situation in Fountain Square with the homeless encampment. I mean, it's been going on for quite some time. They said they were going to clear them out. They didn't. Where do we stand there, Lara?
Well, Mario and I were actually talking about this off air before we came on because we were watching the segment. This is just such an incredibly complex issue. And I think it's taking a step back and looking at it holistically. It's also a very emotional issue for people. When you think about, the video we see of people moving out, but then you also have people who live right across the street from it and their homes and their families. You've got businesses right around the corner. So I think what Andrew Merkley, the point he's making, and Andrew is just a fantastic person. I've known him for years. He's an excellent public servant. What he's saying is, look, this is going to take time because each individual person has individual needs that we are trying to meet. And there may not be the mental health bed that we can get them. There may not be the resources that we need to take care of. Those may not be there, but we're going to do the best we can to get them to where they need to go and where they need to be. Because I think his major point is we can't have this camp pick up and move to another neighborhood.
Right.
And good for the city for trying to do that. It's just hard, I think, for folks to have patience as this is unveiling, but it also just speaks to the more complexity of the issue. And frankly, we have to stop treating homelessness as if it is a social issue and more of it's an infrastructure issue. Housing and affordable housing is an infrastructure issue. People spend, more than half of their salaries and their wages on housing.
Sure.
And we all know it's a challenge. And I think it's really important to take a step back and look at it from a holistic perspective. And I know folks are trying to do that.
Certainly complex, Mark.
Yeah.
And when I was the general counsel at the Marion County Prosecutor's Office, we dealt with a lot of this because a lot of these individuals would get arrested during wintertime because they wanted to stay in the jails when it was cold outside. And a lot of these individuals have addiction issues or they have some sort of mental health issues. And so no one really wants to be homeless. No one wants to be living in a tent.
Yeah.
And so I think the city and the state need to do a better job of getting together and working to try and get the resources and tools necessary to help these people with addiction and with their mental health issues, because a lot of our homeless in Indianapolis have mental health issues.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we're all kind of on the same page on this one. It's a tough topic and certainly something we're going to stay on top of. I want to circle back though to the redistricting really quickly. Do you think at the end of the day, that Governor Braun calls a special session? Mario, about 30 seconds.
I don't think he does, and I don't think it'll pass anyway.
Okay, go ahead.
A minute left. I think it depends on how much Donald Trump offers Indiana to do it and how much, if they realize they actually need Indiana to do it. It may not make sense when they look at the map, and Indiana may not make sense for them to do it.
When will we know?
I think our General Assembly is going to try and push this out as much as possible because they don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to try and push this far enough where it's almost impossible for them to do anyway.
It takes a minute, too, to do redistricting. That's the other part, too. It takes...
Can't happen overnight.
It cannot happen overnight. And I think anyone who's been involved in that understands, it is a complicated process. And to ram that through is, I think, going to put people up in arms. I mean, how long was the last... it takes months to do the math. You have to have the meetings. You got to go through the whole process. So,
not to mention other legislation legislation that could be also pushed through during a special session.
Trump is calling Bray and Houston to D.C., so it's interesting to see what he offers them to try and get them to do it. And to Laura's point, if he's able to give Hoosiers some sort of federal funding, some sort of money that would incentivize them to do it, it's a different story.
We'll
But
see.
We don't
right
know.
now, I don't know.
We'll see. Good to see you both. Thank you so much for coming
Thanks.
in. We'll be right back. All right, thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics. We'll be back here, of course, next Sunday morning at 9:30. And be sure to check out the All Indiana Politics podcast online at wishtv.com. Have a great rest of your weekend.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.